Sex in politics. The best government is that which is most aligned with human nature. Now, people have asked me why it's important to know how sex works in politics. Well, it's part of the biology of politics. However, I'm sorry to tell you, but we have first to understand this, the biology of politics. Only then can we view politics and society in general, and even civilizations through the prism of that. Look, there's plenty of psychology of politics. Our biology is what underlines our psychology. Our biology is what determines the formation of our brains. And it's our brains that come up with psychology, including psychology of politics. It also comes up with ideology. I could go on, but without further ado, let's start with my premise again, which is the best government is that which is most aligned with human nature. I'll say it again. The best government is that which is most aligned with human nature. Now, this seems obvious to me, and if you think about it, it should become obvious to you too. That is, the best government is that which is most aligned with human nature. Of course, this begs the question of what's human nature? It also begs the question of what's the best government, but that'll become obvious later. So let's get back to human nature. Lots of people have an idea of what that is, and it's usually based on their own experience or based on studies of humans. But the problem is that this thing called culture obscures the very basics of human nature. By the basics, I mean what is fundamental to us as humans. So fundamental, that is it biologically inherited from generation to generation, transmitted by our genes. Unlike culture, it doesn't have to be learned. Unlike culture, it can't be learned. Now, let's take a look at culture briefly. Culture is a collection of values and behaviors that are relatively common in a society. And I'll repeat that. Culture is a collection of values and behaviors that are relatively common in a society. Now, in Western culture, we value the individual. We value individuals so much that individuals determine our leaders, our government. That's it. Values and behaviors, pretty much. Now, culture is passed down from generation to generation too, of course. The parent does things in a certain way or tells the child that way works, and the child generally adopts that way. It could be that the culture believes education is important. Well, eventually, most children come to value education too. So the value we place on education is passed from one generation to the next, without genes, just by culture. One society, ours, teaches the value of individual freedom from generation to generation. Also, it values government that's determined by the governed, the people. Another society teaches a value on, let's say, order from generation to generation, and it believes that the government and leaders should do just what the leader says to do. So again, culture varies from one civilization to the next. It is not constant, where it has lots in it that's not constant. So what is constant about human nature? What is our nature, our biology, our genes, decided not by you and me, but by nature? And that's what complicates things. What's important to know is what's programmed into us. Why? For one, culture and leaders and ideology and government are really just piggybacking on what's programmed into us, what's natural about us, what's human nature. For example, if cleanliness is programmed into us, then efforts to establish a value on a clean environment might be relatively easy to create. That's an example of the connection between what's fundamental to humans, cleanliness in this case, and what's manifested by culture. So understanding biology, which in this case involves genes, we can better understand what drives society, politics, and more. Next, we have to find out not how we define human nature, but how nature defines human nature. And we'll get into that in a future podcast. So takeaways are, 1, the best government is that which is most aligned with human nature. And 2, human nature is determined by genes. And 3, we must strip culture from our search by studying lower species as they do not have culture.